We are officially live. Perfecto. Hello, everyone. So today we have a very, very special event. We are here together, the three of us, in this digital medium to celebrate the 25th anniversary of The Matrix. The year was 1999 when it first came out. We all were like, our brains melted and drizzled out of our ears, where we were presented with a choice to take the blue and the red pill. Here we are, still like chugging those blue pills every day, still in the Matrix, still talking with microphones, still slaves to the algorithm. The code still controls our lives. But nevertheless, it's such a pleasure to be here and have a conversation about the topic. I'm going to interview and present my two guests for today, two very special friends. They have so much in similar, but they haven't had the opportunity to talk to each other. First, Jared Bauer, good friend, former. You don't know this. I probably told you this before, but you were one of my inspirations to start doing content in social media. Like
Oh, wow.
yeah. When I started getting hooked in YouTube, I used to watch all your videos, and the way you presented, the way you used philosophy to talk about cinema, it was a very big inspiration to me. I was just starting, so you played a big part in who I am today, and I still admire very much your opinion till this day. Gurnier, also a very good friend. We were just together in Panama recently. We were at the premiere of our movie. Gurnier is the writer, director, and producer, and he was kind enough to invite me as an executive producer. So he was one of my tipping my toes into the film industry for real. A super talented guy. We're currently writing a movie together, writing a script together, which is a very, very interesting project that we can also discuss further on. And the other thing that the three of us share is our passion and our affection for this movie Matrix and what it signifies in the history of cinema, and all the question it still poses us. And one of the reasons, and I discussed this with Jared, and he was the one to present this idea to me. He said, Diego, the Matrix is turning 25. I was going to invite Jared to give the news with me, the thing that I do every Monday. But he told me, man, the Matrix is turning 25. And I said, well, perfect opportunity for me to watch it again. So I did the sadomasochist thing over the weekend, and I watched the four Matrix movie. And since I was already knee deep in shit, and so I said, why not? I'm going to watch Animatrix as well, which was surprisingly very, very interesting, and it is still holding very, very well. So I did the whole homework. I watched the whole Matrix thing. I even went through a couple of texts from Jean Baudrillard because he's heavily implied in everything Matrix related. So it was a very interesting weekend down the rabbit hole. I don't know how you guys prepare for the homework and for the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I tried not to rewatch the ones that I could just replay in my head. So, which is really the first two. And I'm also one of those people who's a little bit sacred about when I rewatch something. Cause if I wait a couple years and like parts I forget of the original Matrix, then I watch it and it's like seeing it all over again and it's sublime. So I didn't rewatch that one, but I know it very well. Second one, similar. I did rewatch parts of the third one, and I rewatched the entirety of the fourth one, and I also rewatched the Animatrix, which I hadn't seen in probably 15 years. And I agree, there's a lot of really cool stuff about it. Regarding your question about the legacy, I'll let Gurnier answer his question first, but I'm really excited to talk about that.
Awesome. Well, I just basically watched the first one and the Animatrix again, and boy, was it different than how I remembered it.
Really?
Very different. The Animatrix, I only watched it like when it came out, and then I'm like, oh, and I saw it again, and I'm like, damn, there's some deep stuff in there.
Yeah, there is for sure. Yeah. Do you remember when you first watched the first Matrix movie? Because I know, Jared, for you, it was really special, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your first experience with the Matrix in the movies?
Yeah, I mean, I was like 12 years old. It is kind of like an origin story for someone who gets interested in just like trying to pursue serious thinking. And really, actually, at that time, first and foremost, cinema. But yeah, I mean, the simple story, and I think there's probably a lot of people that have similar experiences, but I saw it in the theater when I was like 12 years old, and it just blew my mind. I had never really interrogated that there could be a line between real and real. I just kind of always assumed as a 12-year-old kid that everything was as it seemed. The idea that it could not be as it seemed was just blew my mind as a kid. And I bought a copy of Simulacra and Simulation at 12 years old. Didn't understand a word.
Well,
but it was an ambition.
In your defense, neither did the Wachowskis. They didn't understand the book as well. So in your defense, everything is okay.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that at some point, because I do kind of interpret the sequels as like, them taking Baudrillard's feedback relatively seriously and trying to, not make a movie that The Matrix would make about itself, to quote Baudrillard's feedback about the movie. I don't know how successful they were, but overall, I just want to say about the trilogy is like, although if you were to ask me how many good Matrix movies are there, I would say one, but that one is a masterpiece of the first order.
I agree.
The first one. But overall, revisiting the sequels, especially the original trilogy, like there's so many cool things. There's so many amazing shots. There's so much ambition, both intellectually, technologically, in terms of action films. I mean, not everything is pulled off 100%, but man, every one of those installments has something amazing about it, And so I expected that I would just, be hiding my head the whole time, revisiting the kind of lackluster experience of those sequels. But, I kind of came away with like, nah, man, we should be so grateful we have the Matrix movies. Like, at the end of the day, the one thing you can say, at least about the original trilogy, is that they were never not ambitious. And I think when it comes to action movies, it's very precious.
Great point. Great point.
First one is a perfect film. And I remember MTV. What is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? And then I just went in there and I was blown away. But instead of buying a book, I bought a trench coat. Like the whole style, the music, like the whole, like how they did the editing and the sound, like stuff that I say. I'm like, oh my God, I just stole that from this line in the Matrix, and it's been in my site. Yeah.
My God. So, go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say something. You mentioned about like the legacy of filmmaking, and Grenier mentioned the technical aspect. I think that the fact that this movie won 4 technical Academy Awards for sound design and special effects was already a revolution. The idea that any kind of an action movie, especially one starring Keanu Reeves, would even be considered for technical awards is just evidence of the fact that this movie was something special. And I always say that the original Matrix is a movie you could watch and enjoy with your eyes closed. The rhythm of especially Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving, their performance, there's something so rhythmic and melodious about the way the film is put together, the sound editing. I mean, it's one of the reasons it's such a masterpiece.
Let me tell you why you're here.
Yeah. Mr. Anderson.
Every time I write something, I always think like, okay, how can I paste this more like the Matrix? Because it's the perfect like blend of action, exposition, scene, action, exposition, scene, and it just keeps going and going. And just when you feel it's gonna get like really slow, bam, it just hits you with the right hook. Like that first film is like, I think one of the best movie scripts or anything of just all time. And it's not 100%. Only that, like watching it yesterday, it makes so much sense. Like it was ahead of its time. It's so current right now. Like there's life before the Matrix, like society before the Matrix and society after. Like even all these Instagram people that are like, oh, manifestation, whatever. All these ideas are in there, and it's like been put into our head where we're more like adaptable to it. And one thing, like I'm already gonna start talking about the movie.
No, but that's cool. It's a perfect segue. I was reading yesterday from a philosopher. It's a right-wing philosopher from the US, and the guy is the guy that coined the term "to be pilled." He's actually the one attributed to coining the term "pilled." And this is also from the Matrix. And today is probably one of the most prominent political terminologies that we use to talk about being awoke, being awake, being awoke from the dream versus sleeping in the Matrix, being pilled. Like which pill do you like? You took the red pill, you took the blue pill. This is also the Matrix. It's interesting to say if it was the Matrix as the event that actually named the human necessity, or if the gears in motion were already inevitable and the Matrix was just the one to name it, just to put a color in it, just to signify it with a sufficient symbolic social event that people could universally relate to it. But it was already happening. You see what I mean? Like
it was a meme before the meme.
Yeah, exactly. It's like placing this floating signifier and pinning it down, anchoring it to one event, which is taking the pill. Okay, so if we move on into the movie itself, if you guys haven't seen it,
Can I?
like,
Can I? Can I? I'm sorry. Can I build off the philosophy thing you mentioned about being pilled?
please.
So yeah, I mean, it is one of the most interesting cultural artifacts of our time. So not only are people talking about being pilled, but I'm sure that you're aware, like, was it Andrew Tate, Logan Paul? They all said like the Matrix got me. You know,
Yeah,
they're basically using it
you're
as
caught in
a
the matrix.
metaphor for some kind of a shadowy authority that's controlling them. And I think that there is kind of like it's the perfect metaphor because it operates on like the kind of objet petit a, where it's like there's just like this hidden thing of desire where it's like the perfect metaphor that can be used for anything because ultimately it's just, you know, you're selling the obfuscation itself to the like the object cause of desire.
I'm gonna get there. I don't want to get too dense too soon.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Jared, oh my God, I have stuff prepared for us to talk
Okay.
to about
Okay.
the topic. So I just want to give like a brief recap. If you like, if anyone watching this have been living under a rock for the last 25 years, the Matrix is this movie that tells the story of simulated reality that we're all part of, and we're all sleeping inside this simulated reality. And in a way, it talks about the process of how do we awake and how do we break free from this simulation in which we are trapped. So we follow the story of Neo. Neo is a double life guy that he has two lives. In one of them, he's a programmer in a company. He's human resource. He's capital humano. He's working every day. He has a very nice programming job, blah, blah, blah. And in his second life, he's a hacker that goes by the name of Neo. And he has this intuition that he's into something bigger. He has this question about what is the Matrix. So Neo is discovered by Morpheus, which is this oracle-like or like this prophetic-like figure inside the Matrix that is looking for Neo from his own point of view. He gets to awaken Neo. Neo discovers that he has a very important part to play in this orchestra of awakening everybody else and setting the world free from this illusion of us living trapped inside this fake reality. And we come to this conclusion that we have the opportunity of awakening that implies a type of digital and physical revolution for us to break free from our past mistakes, which is the creation of AI, like becoming dependent to the machine. We became too over dependent to the machine to the point where the machine took over, and the machine in the end ended up instrumentalizing us. So one of the main philosophical points, like this is one of my new takes, because I have two main new takes from rewatching The Matrix after 25 years. First, I see it as the in a way, the dissolution of the antagonism between subject and object, because what we see is fundamentally a fight. The war is between subjects and objects. So the subject is the human, the object is the machine, right? So the war is between subjects and objects. And in a way, I think this is very interesting for us to reflect on our over-dependence on the object, and the fact that for a very long time, we have given an artificial dominance of the subject over the objects. And I think the Matrix breaks that dualism and places objects again on the forefront of destiny, and subjects as condition to objects. We are dependent to objects. And this is according to me a very relevant and a very modern, very useful reflection to make on our current situation. That because we start with Neo sleeping in front of screens, and he's just being bombarded with information. He's very rare for protagonists to be presented in a first scene completely sleeping, completely passive. And this reflects on our current situations. We are passives. We no longer have desires. The algorithm is telling us what we want. The algorithm is telling you what is important. The algorithm is telling you what you should read, what you should watch, which people you should follow, with who you should fall in love, what you will buy. The algorithm has the active part in the story, and we are passive, just like Neo. Neo is sleeping inside the Matrix in front of these screens, and he's bombarded. So the desire is coming from the object to the subject. That's why I think like this line of questioning already triggers a lot of very important questions. Not because I think one of the biggest mistakes in the Matrix, according to me, is that they aimed for Baudrillard, like the difference between simulacra, simulation, and the real, and they scratched the Plato's cave. They did more Plato's cave than they did simulation and simulacra. But nevertheless, I think it triggers for us a very interesting line of questioning regarding the relationship between subject and object, and which one is leading history. What leads history, subjects or objects? I don't know why you guys think about this first line.
So you're talking about the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the second movie, there's an interesting development in that, and where there's the famous, very cryptic discussion with the architect, in which the architect basically tells him that the Matrix there were 6 matrices, and turns out that your rebellion, your seemingly divinely inspired rebellion, is actually all part of the plan. And he ultimately realizes that even then, like, it's all just accounted for in the system. And I think that this was, in my opinion, their attempt to try and get like Baudrillard a little bit more right. So in the second movie, he has, and it's really maybe not Baudrillard in particular, but like just French postmodernists in general. So for example, like there's that talk he has with Counselor Hamann, where Counselor Hamann asks, like, what is control? He points to a water machine and says, like, yeah, we could turn off the water machine, but then we would all die. So who actually controls it? And, he might as well have just said, instead of what is control, he might as well have just said, what is power?
Yeah.
And so again, whereas we think that the supremacy of the subject is established at the end of the first Matrix movie, turns out in the second movie, no, we're wrong. The object has its revenge.
Yeah.
Then in the third movie, I think you're absolutely right. And it's all that thing with Ramachandra in the train station, where you learn that the objects actually are subjects, and the line between them is very blurred. And then by the fourth film, both the objects and the subjects are basically taking on the role, I guess, of the subject, where they team up. Yeah.
Well, thinking about it, like in the first movie, the objects and the subjects, like the AI, needs the human as well. It's very symbiotic. Like without one, the other one can't exist. So even on like on a storytelling level, like once you get like outside into the real world, like what's above that? I don't know if my point is coming across, because we all need each other, and we're all like in this system of a circle, where every time you go a layer up, there's like, it gets to a point where not even the machines knows what is like beyond that. Does it make sense?
Yeah. The way I think about it is like the first movie, the Wachowskis unplugged a generation, myself included, and they thought to themselves, all right, well, how do we do it again? Right now we've awakened people to a division between real and unreal. For the second movie, we're going to tell them that, hey, the idea of a division between real and unreal is actually informed by a greater system. And the Matrix isn't actually just this simulation.
Exactly.
It's basically this power structure. Exactly. Where, there's the source, there's the architect, there's the oracle, there's Zion getting wiped out and then repopulated every 7 years. So it's actually like a socialist critique is, that the system that you live in is the Matrix. This whole thing with computer simulations is just a distraction. So I think this is this is how they awaken again. And that's why it gets so ambitious. Can you imagine filmmakers trying to convey that in an action movie? I mean, it's impossible to do well. So the fact that the movie's as good as it is, sorry.
But some of that is in the first movie, when the guy that goes, Mr. Anderson, I forgot his name.
Agent Smith.
Yeah, he also had his own desires, and he was part of the machines. He did not want to be inside, and he has that whole speech about like humans being viruses, and he wants something more. The same AI, I guess, started having its own desires, which is really interesting when we start thinking about AI and everything that's happening now. Will AI have its own desires? Is it because it has a body? Like, is there really a soul, or is just by having a body or a function, it's going to build desire because there's objects and it has things to do and tasks? And
there's a couple of things. Like, first, I wanted to go back to this opposition between subject and object and build upon your comments, because I think they're spot on. So basically, one of the things that Baudrillard does better than most post-structuralists and most postmodernists is that Baudrillard is not pointing towards an opposition. Baudrillard is not pointing towards a distinction between simulation and real, between human and subject and object. What Baudrillard is saying that those antagonisms are fake. That what Baudrillard is saying is that why he thinks the Matrix is just representing the allegory of the cave instead of really addressing the problem of simulation. What Baudrillard says is that if we were to wake up from the simulation, we will never be able to tell the difference between real and fiction. This is our real conundrum. We are way past the point of no return, trapped into the system of symbolic exchange to be ever able to tell the difference between a simulation and reality. You know, there's this very famous story from Borges, from José Luis Borges, that is also cited by the Wachowskis and also cited by Baudrillard. That is the tale about the kingdom that built a map. You know, and the king was so fixated on the notion of having a perfect map of his territory that in the end, the map had more information than the territory. The map was the same size of the territory and had more information on it than the real territory was supposed to simulate. And at some point in the story of Borges, the map was so big, so complicated, and so full of information that the map starts staring down. What Baudrillard tells us is that in the place where we are right now is the other way around. We live on the map, and reality of itself, reality is no longer interesting. The map is much more interesting and much more important and much more real, in the sense that the connection between the symbolic objects of the map constitute our notion of reality, that the distinction between the map and reality is impossible for us to do. That's why there's a chapter in the book called The Desert of the Real. That is a sentence that Morpheus uses to trigger Neo when the first time they come into reality. Why the desert of the real? Because simulation is no longer escapable. Like, simulation is the only way we can touch reality is with simulation. The only way we can explain reality, explain social relationships, explain power, explain love, explain trust, explain justice, explain consciousness is with the symbolic exchange and the symbolic intertwine of symbolic elements. So reality, it disappeared. We can no longer access reality. The distinction between reality and fiction is gone. We can no longer access it. That's why The Matrix is a movie that is much closer to the allegory of the cave, where you have to get out of the cave, you know. But what Gurdner is saying, which is very spot on, is that once you get out, there's another layer. You know, Neo, yes, but you're just another version of Neo. There has been many layers of Neos in this past history. I have another point, but I would like to get your comments on this first.
Like the Animatrix, when the first one that they're having like sexual foreplay, but there's every time they go into the Animatrix to have a real connection. Like in the Animatrix, they go into the Matrix. Like even when they want to talk to the robots, or like all those short films talk about like the guys from, I think it was Osiris. The couple would go into the Animatrix to have that fight, and that's where they would have their relationship. Or even the one where they do the test on the girl, the test is done inside the simulation. Mm-hmm. Like all the stuff that tells you who you are in reality was done inside the simulation. So
exactly.
Now that you mentioned that, it starts like I'm starting to connect the dots of what we're going to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting because I hadn't like really seen it that way. I just thought like, damn, these people are perverts.
No, but it makes a lot of sense, and see the way it reflects on us, you know, because for example, in the war of Iraq, the U.S. government was training the air forces to do airstrikes in Iraq. But it was interesting because they interview a lot of the Air Force pilots, and they said that once they had to actually execute the missions, they felt almost nothing. For them, they simulated the attack so many times. They did the mission in a simulation so many times, and the simulation was so perfect that when they have to do it in reality, it was just another interaction of the simulation, you know. And these pilots is very interesting. They're called the Nintendo Force, and it's a real name they were using internally because, you know, like if, like for example, let's say when you kiss a girl for the first time, you're simulating the kiss from a movie that is already a simulation. You see? So
or think about the first time you have sex.
Exactly.
Every kid these days has seen porn. You know,
exactly. The first time you have sex, you are simulating sex from porn, which is already a simulation. So, what is real sex? You see, this is Baudrillard's point. The point of Baudrillard is that our distinction between reality of simulation is no longer relevant. It doesn't make sense anymore. We live in a simulation. Why? Because we can no longer distinguish simulation from reality. Everything we do is a simulation of a simulation. Like we how am I behaving? The way I'm supposed to behave because of my internet avatar. So I have this self-description that is a simulation of me, that is an avatar that I have on social media. So I simulate my simulation in real life.
This is why I think in the third movie, they go out of their way to blur this distinction between real and unreal, because they realize that not only was it counter to Baudrillard's idea, but it ultimately wasn't really, I guess, effective in their overall plan to, try to quote unquote educate, or awaken people. And that's why, there's the train, things stop making sense in the way that you can like track it within the narrative. Like the train world is over and over again established as just a world between here and the digital world. It doesn't really materially make sense how to do that. Then there's the gold world that Neo is tapped into, never really explained. And I think that these things were left deliberately vague because, again, I don't think exactly it maps onto Baudrillard's point, but I think that ultimately they wanted to make it a little bit messier.
Yeah, blur the lines more, no?
If we go back to the first one, because I have no memory of 2, 3, and 4. That doesn't exist for me. There's a scene where the Judas character, I forgot his name, is talking to the agent, right?
So Cypher, right?
Yeah. So
the traitor.
Eating,
You know his last name? You remember his last name, Jared?
No.
The character or the actor?
No, the character.
Oh man, this is deep nerd shit. Oh my god, you're totally right. Oh yeah, because Smith said, "Do we have a deal, Mr. Reagan?" Yeah,
and dude, I love it. I love it that his last name is Reagan, man. I adore it. That was probably my best detail out of rewatching the whole thing. It's perfect. It's perfect that his name is Reagan because he's a traitor, like he's a traitor. He's part of the simulation. He wants to go back to the Matrix and be someone famous. No, he said, I want to go back to the Matrix and be somebody important. Like an actor.
Exactly. An actor. That's what I was like. So it's all about the simulation.
Sublime line.
Someone that like simulates stuff, right? Not like I want to be someone important, like someone who saves lives or whatever. No, I want to be an actor, which is just people acting. Like it's ridiculously, and it's so like right now when I see my daughter, it's like, she wants to be an influencer. You get what I mean? Like, and it's just like the whole thing is so relevant right now.
I really want to be a simulation. Like I really so bad. I want to be a simulation. I so bad. My biggest real desire is to become a simulation.
Yeah, there are a couple times in the series where they kind of paint the antagonists as reactionaries. Like you could paint Cypher as somebody who like wants to be controlled, someone wants to be infantilized, who wants to just kind of find themselves within a greater social organism. And then I was rewatching the fourth one, and at the end, Neil Patrick Harris, who plays the analyst, he says, you guys can go try and like rebuild the world in your image, but ultimately what people really want is to be controlled. They want the burden of choice lifted off their shoulders. You can imagine this is like some kind of like Confucian-ish reactionary politics that like is being a mouthpiece for.
That's interesting. So if we go into the politics of the movie, which I think is very interesting, I read recently from Giorgio Agamben, like this geopolitical theoretician from Italy. He's more famous from the concept of what is his name? Like constant state of exception. Giorgio Agamben was the philosopher that made this very important point about how democracy needs a constant state of exception in order to function. So we have a system of rules, but we are always breaking the rules to function. Rules are just for the poor, for the dumb, and for the weak. And the state is always functioning outside of the rules. This is the state of exception. But the other concept interesting from Agamben, which I think is very relevant to the Matrix, is the notion of controlled opposition. And this is also in Baudrillard, but in another book that is called Death and Symbolic Exchange, where Baudrillard raises this point that for a totalitarian system to work, it needs a fractal control of decision making. Okay, what does it mean, a fractal control of decision making? In totalitarian systems, every decision for the subject is presented as dualism, as binary, red or blue, Republican or liberal, right or wrong, pro-life or pro-choice. Like the perfect control is the illusion of choice. The perfect control is the illusion of choice. This is controlled opposition, which is very real in real life politics, and it's extremely real in the Matrix, because Neo is control opposition. You know, the 6 times Neo woke up to fail, to come to this binary opposition between destroying the Matrix or saving Zion. You know, every time it was control opposition, just like we have in normal politics. You know, in the politics of the Matrix, for me, Neo is doing exactly what it should do. And even if we push ahead to number 3 and number 4, like Baudrillard said, is the type of movie that the Matrix will do, because is the type of control opposition necessary for us to feel safe with a certain degree of freedom to vote, choose, go to the movies, not go to the movies. I like Matrix 4, I didn't like Matrix 4, for the Matrix to keep existing.
Right. And to your first point on Agamben, I think ultimately that's what the Oracle represents, right? In the third movie, she says the architect's purpose is to balance the equation. My job is to unbalance it. So
Exactly.
she basically is the hunter of the state of exception.
Yep.
She finds, she basically like convinces Morpheus to try to find the one, so that the one can, become that controlled opposition that then allows the system to perpetuate itself.
Yeah, because otherwise, if the system was too strict, people will actually wake up, because the
Right.
only thing that can trigger real revolutions is pain, is hurt, is suffering, is hunger.
And that's the speech that the AI guy tells Morpheus in the first movie.
Yeah,
he actually talks about all this stuff, like if it's too perfect and if there's no pain and if there's no like conflict, then everybody wakes up from the dream.
Yeah. We don't believe it.
Just on a performance level, man, all of those Hugo Weaving monologues are fucking iconic, man.
They're
So
great,
good.
right?
They're
Yeah.
great.
It's crazy. I was also super impressed because I mean I know Hugo Weaving is a masterful actor, but it's true that the way he delivers those speeches, man, you can feel it. Like he was spot on in the delivery. It's crazy. So
It's one of my favorite villain performances for sure.
oh yeah, for me too. Like Agent Smith is flawless. Even the fight scenes are still good. It's crazy.
The
Oh,
fights
yeah.
are amazing. I'm not good. They're still amazing.
They're amazing, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, damn.
I wanted to touch back and without going too hard on this, because there's another angle of philosophy that I would like to explore, but it's like I'm calling it. I wrote it down. I want to do a lo-fi analysis of the Matrix with you guys, and if you can pamper me with this, I will tell you how we can do it. But first, I wanted to touch a little bit on the technical aspects of the Matrix itself. Gurner, you already graduated from writing school before you watched the Matrix, or you study film after?
I way after, like 10 years after,
My
maybe
God.
12 years after. I was a kid when I watched that.
And you still place the script from the Matrix in like your top lists?
I don't know if the physical script, but like the movie itself is another level, because the real first script, I've read parts of it. Like humans weren't supposed to be batteries, because that made no sense, because we do more waste and whatever. We're supposed to be computing power. And there was a lot more like one of the girls would transform to a guy or vice versa when they would there. It was like way more
The
Wachowski.
character switch was actually supposed to be like her residual self-image was going to be a man. Basically,
exactly.
like her true. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
It was like I read part of
do
it.
that.
I don't remember it, because I read this when I was in film school, like 2010, and I remember it was way more out there. And it's like if someone, I guess Joel Silver or whoever funded it, was like, okay, let's bring this down for like.
Yeah, I wonder who did the script doctoring. Somebody,
Yeah.
I mean, also just based on like the trajectory of the rest of the Wachowskis' work, it seems like somebody who was more like Hollywood, more like strict 3-act structure, probably doctored that script or did a pass at it. So, these people are just well paid to remain anonymous, though.
Yeah, there was like whoever the script doctor was really good, and like whether the original film would have been better or not, I don't know. But this one, as a form of entertainment or just a movie as itself, is because I'm one of the people that believe like the first thing about a movie is supposed to be entertaining. Like the philosophy or whatever, you have to have that. but you can't bore a person because you're having them spend 2 hours of their life. Like everybody has stuff to do, and time is the most important thing. So as that balance, I feel that because it delivers the goods. Like that last action scene where he picks up like Trinity, and then Morpheus looks at him, and it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's Keanu Reeves with the Gatling gun, and then it just goes and goes, and the double climax, and then he puts like, oh crap, the AIs now are scared of dying too, and which then connects with the animatrix of what was the whole revolution thing. The moment that they started getting scared of dying, which is like the AI started imitating us, their creators. And then it really has a lot of like religious stuff too, like, Jesus, are we like,
oh yeah. I don't know how many times in the first movie Neo gets called Jesus. Like I think it's at least 8 times. At least 8 times in the movie.
Real quick, you mentioned just like how entertaining the movie is, like, and you were talking about the Gatling gun scene. Like, there's a part in that third act where like he saves Trinity as she's jumping from the helicopter, and then there's like that slow motion shot as she's like careening towards the camera, and then the building blows up in the background. You're just like, I can't believe how awesome this is. And then Hank, the operator, says, "I knew it. He's the one," and like. It is completely mirrored 100% in the audience. We are just as impressed, exalted, blown off our fucking feet by the sequence of events we just saw. I mean, that kind of pacing, that kind of building up of an action sequence, that kind of just the momentum and turning points in it's amazing. I mean, I totally agree. It's one of the best scripts ever. It's so good.
Can I just say something after your explanation, Jared? It makes so much sense. Can you imagine? Like, let's take the Matrix seriously for a second. Neo is the one because he is in the screen producing us with this teleological, mystical experience of, how we found the chosen one. We all did. We all recognize Neo as the chosen one because he's the god of the simulation. He is in the simulation. And he's producing us with this teleological sense of finding the chosen one. It's insane because in that level it works perfectly. If we include our meta level, if we include our point of view as part of the Matrix, because we are not outside. We are. This is what Baudrillard point is. Like we have to blur the lines, not within reality and simulation within the movie. We have to include us. We have to include ourselves within the discussion. So in that sense, yes, like the simulation is what is happening on the screen. The 2 layers, like we are the other layer of what could be the real. The actual real could be the seats in the cinema. The other 2 are still part of the simulation. So in that sense, yes, we found Neo. Like we were amazed. The prophecies fulfilled each other, and it's insane because it's exactly like religion. We're so stupid. Like we write the prophecy. And then the prophecy happens. It's like, oh my God, we knew it. We knew it. It was real. It's so stupid. Like Nietzsche used to say this. Like we are the kings of hiding the camel behind the bushes and then finding the camel and like, oh my God, I found a camel. I'm so great.
That's so funny.
It's really interesting because when I look at it as a story perspective yesterday, and we're talking about religion gets to a point where like, well, what's before God? And it's the same in the Matrix. What's above the clouds? What is next? Like
the other layer.
Entertaining this layer where the simulation is fighting against the simulation that you forget. Like, why aren't the machines like thinking about colonizing another planet or whatever? And it's like it just keeps us. It's like that whole thing with the cave. I forgot the name of the cave.
Allegory of the cave.
It's keeping us in there. Now that you mention it, like, and it's just how like religion works. And it has
cave within a cave.
And it has so many zingers. Zingers are what I call those lines where she puts the gun, she goes, dodge this. And it just goes on. And it's just like, it's like the Proverbs in the Bible where you can just like say it and it's a zinger right there, like it works for everything. Like,
yeah, the Bible also had a very good script, to be honest with you.
Like,
that's why we mimic it so much.
Yeah, there were some really paid rewriters on that one too.
Yeah.
The translations were masterful reworks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait, is Mary a virgin? No, we should make her a virgin. That will sell much more. Yes, change the word. That's it. Mary is now a virgin. That's much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great script. So
Great screen editors.
the other point I wanted to talk to you guys was about the technicality of the film itself, because I agree with Gurney, not only in the sense that the pacing of the film is masterful, like it keeps you entertained, and it's crazy, because I don't know if you guys are suffering with the same lack of attention due to social media addiction, but it's hard to follow films lately. Like if the films are not properly scripted with the right pacing, I'm watching myself reaching for the cell phone everywhere, every time in most movies, and with the Matrix it was intense. I still didn't feel that. I didn't have the need to reach for my phone. So in that sense, already the pacing was anticipating our current lack of attention. And what other technical aspects about the Matrix do you think are worth revisiting and rediscussing? Of course, the camera, the 360 stuff, the slow mo.
Bro,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, all the effects have aged so well. Not so much for the sequels, and even not so much in the fourth one. But the movie just ages so well, and that's funny. I actually have anecdotes of like friends of mine who are my age, and like now they have like nieces and nephews who are like 15, and they only care about TikTok, haven't seen a movie in a decade, and they say they'll sit down and watch The Matrix.
my
like
daughter
yeah.
2 years ago never watched The Matrix, and I put that on. She did not pick up her phone, and it's just so perfectly paced. And it's not just that. When we talk about effects, bro, I think like some of them like were acting with broken legs, because like the physicality, all those things had wires and CGs, but they were still kind of doing it.
Yeah.
Like on the second and the third, they just went like, oh, it's all a drawing. And then that like was really cool at the moment. And now we watch it and it's like, but you still watch it now. I watched it yesterday and I was like, damn, that looks good.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that's revolutionary, and I still can't believe they got it, that it happened, is that for this unknown movie, they actually were able to push the production like 6 months for Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, and Hugo Weaving and Carrie-Anne Moss to learn Kung Fu from Yen Wu-Ping, like the master fight choreographer. It's crazy that they got away with that somebody paid for that, and oh my God, does it pay off? That first scene when you see, I know Kung Fu, and then it transitions to the sparring scene, and all of a sudden you're seeing Keanu Reeves, who was goofy 2 minutes ago, just kicking ass like he knows what he's doing. It's amazing.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane. And also, that it was mandatory for every actor to read Simulacra and Simulation. It's true.
It's funny. You know what I like about that? There was like a special features on the original Matrix where Keanu Reeves actually talks about it, and like I rewatched. It's like the Matrix Revisited. It was like a special feature, and he gets it. Like there was just, especially back then, it was like a stereotype that Keanu Reeves was stupid because he
actually read the thing.
He got it. Like he was like kind of talking about how there's like a decay of meaning between like the image of Christ, your idea of Christ, and then like it's just copies of copies of copies until it exists as like a little buddy Christ on your dashboard. A decay of meaning, and I'm like, dude, Keanu Reeves is fucking smart.
Yeah, it's crazy. Maybe that's why he's depressed now. He got into the rabbit hole. He made the mistake of actually following the rabbit of philosophy, which was a huge problem. So the last thing before I go into my exercise of the lo-fi analysis of the Matrix. So the Matrix was probably one of the first movies to attempt to do this, but it was definitely not the last. I think it started this wave of questioning our relationship with artificial intelligence, with the simulation and whatnot. So where do you think the idea is now? Like, do you think we have evolved past that idea? The idea is still the same? Some other movie did it better? Like, I don't know. Because, for example, according to me, Mulholland Drive, it's a better movie about simulation and simulacra than Matrix.
Well, are you asking the question about simulation or about AI?
Simulation.
I would probably agree. I think The Matrix doesn't really apply simply because, it's a movie about distinguishing between real and unreal. And whenever you're kind of doing that, it's going to be hard to make this separate point. And I think really the best thing you can say about it being about simulation in the Baudrillard sense is that, like, well, in the third movie, the levels get blurred. And I think that's really all you can say.
Well, in a sense, I think we've all become Cypher, like most people. We all want to just live in a simulation. Like it's sad to say it, but We all want to be in our own algorithm. I don't want to hear news about this or whatever stuff that can affect me, and I'm already there. Like, even if I don't want to, because I can't even, there's stuff that I can't help, so I just don't want to hear about it. I want to
Oh
be
fuck,
an
that's a
actor.
gut punch. That was a
Like,
good one. That was a good one, and it was a very nasty gut punch to say that. Yeah, people want to be influencers. Actually, people don't want to wake up. They want to be really, really triggered and really, really like deeply connected to the matrix. Like, I want to fully embrace the simulation. Like the best and it's crazy because this is true. The number one aspired profession in Latin America is YouTuber.
Yeah, I think it's the same in the States. You know, there's this an anecdote I heard. I'm not going to be able to bring up the exact research institute, but there was a study that said, like, do people actually like targeted ads? And you know, when you ask people before the study, their answer was no. But after the study, when they got a targeted ad that was like flattering, like, oh, they understood that they were being targeted and it was like for a sophisticated product, and like, oh, okay, so I got this ad that therefore the algorithm thinks I'm sophisticated, then they liked it. And so Grenier is absolutely right. We do want to be Cypher. We want these simulations. We want the AI to tell us, to basically fulfill our desires, to give us better understandings of ourselves, more favorable understandings, or just tell stories to us about ourselves that we like.
That's
I got
crazy, man.
I got my friend that wears his tinfoil hat, and he's like, but use Brave browser, use Tor, use whatever. The ads are gonna target you. I'm like, if my faucet's broken, I need an ad that's gonna tell me how to fix my faucet. Like, I want to be targeted. You get what I mean? It'll make my life easier. And I hate admitting this, but if I can't look at myself in the mirror and lie to myself, like, it makes being in the simulation and wanting to be part of it makes life easier. And it's just hard to compete against that. Like,
yeah, I mean, you probably have a pretty, you know, you're probably got your life together, probably in control of your impulses. But like, if you have a drinking problem and there are ads that are targeting you after the third shot to like download a gambling app, then things get a little bit messier.
Dude, trust me, I don't have Instagram on my phone. Like, if a small piece of chocolate, you can ask Diego when he goes like, hey, you want chocolate? I'm like, no, I can't have one now, because if I start, I ain't gonna stop. Like, I have to do like, my personal phone only has WhatsApp. Instagram is in my work phone or whatever. Like, and it's made my life really complicated. But the best moments I've realized is when I have no data.
Yeah, check this comment out. I think it's brilliant. We're giving up our battery energy to reggaeton performers.
For real.
Yeah. So reggaeton as the dominant mode, the dominant code of the matrix for the simulation to keep existing. We are there dancing and giving our battery to reggaeton performers so the matrix can continue. I think it's spot on, eh? Spot on.
Just remember, the rock and roll performers, they're just Neo. They're also part of the matrix. They make
I
you
agree.
think you're outside.
Yeah, they are exactly just like the the anarchist punk bands of the 70s that they ended up being instrumentalized as anarchist movements that became anti-communist, and they were necessary to keep the relevance of neoliberalism, and they were actually counter-revolutionary, posing as revolutionary. This is exactly the notion of controlled opposition within politics.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, I don't know, because I'm not a scientist or anything, but there has to be something that really helps us when we have a yes or no decision. Like, we always want to have like a yes or no decision, or like good and bad, but everything is really shades of gray, right? But there's something comforting when you say like, oh, this is the good and this is the bad. I don't have to think about it. Bam.
And what is interesting is that in the end, the code of the matrix is binary. And this is one of the, like, if you go to the core of binary programming, is crazy that Baudrillard was able to describe this. You know, the true totalitarian system is the infinite fractal binary illusion of decision making. It's perfect. Binary code. Like, you can boil binary code all the way down to the difference between 1 and 0.
In the first three movies, there was kind of like a subtextual exploration of binary, in that, like, you know, Neo was 1, Smith was 0. And then in the fourth movie, one of my criticisms of the fourth movie is that there are a lot of things that were subtextual that the fourth movie just overly states. Like, there's time where Jada Pinkett Smith just says like, oh, the whole war between Zion and the machines was a matrix in its own. It's like, okay, thank you. Maybe like basically that's what the architect was saying, but in much less clear dialogue. But my point was that I wanted to get Diego's thoughts on this is like in the fourth movie, they say the word binary a lot. Smith says binary. I don't know if this was ultimately some kind of foreshadowing to the, now it's not just Neo who's the one, it's Neo and Trinity, but yet there's still like a standing binary between Smith and Neo. What was your take on it? Were they trying to say something new with that?
Yeah. So my take on this, Jared, and I think we had this discussion once before when we were talking about the Matrix. So and it was interesting because you guys said that in the first script, one of the characters was male in the simulation and female in reality, something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a very big queer reading of the Matrix. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this before. So the Matrix is the coming out movie for the Wachowskis. It's the in a way is the pursuit of gender identity within late capitalism mode of production. And according to me, what they're really talking about, and in the end of the third movie and in the final act of the fourth movie, is the break between cis or heteronormative and alternative, and moving towards an LGBTQ plus more like non-restrictive categorization of sexuality itself. Because in the end of the third movie, we end with a very big rainbow. You can finally be yourself. You can become who you really were meant to be. And that's why I think in the first script, it made sense for you to be somebody in real life and somebody else in the simulation. As if you have to pretend to play a gender role in conformist society in order to function. But then the movie is about breaking that stereotype and being able to be who you really want to be and who you are. And in the third movie, they had to make this antagonism and to break the dualism and add a female Jesus. Like Trinity is like female Jesus Christ. It's no longer about gender conformity. It's really an open question, and there's no such thing as gender category, fluidity. Anybody can be whatever they want. It's a simulation. Why are we sticking to gender molds if it's a simulation? If the real doesn't exist anymore, who cares about what triggers categories? Categories are completely open. They're all made up. Why are we pretending to be serious? I wouldn't read it much further than that, in the sense of a question about freedom or a question about politics. For me, is more about identity. It's not about politics, and it's not about decision making. That's my take, at least on the fourth movie.
Yeah, I think that it definitely invites that reading. I think that so there are some voices who kind of will talk about this question of identity and identity, or identifying as something, as kind of like the return of Cartesian dualism.
Yeah.
And I think that even before there's any kind of discussion of like, gender, especially in the fourth one, just the fact that how does Agent Smith become Bane? The fact that even makes sense isn't already in itself a return or a reassertion of Cartesian dualism. And I don't want to armchair psychoanalyze the Wachowskis, but it seems like even when we're talking about elements that don't have any gendered elements at all, there is still this kind of division between, this implication about how you present and how you are.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Yeah. So I don't know, Gurney, do you have something to add to this, or should we move to the next point?
Like as a script writing, like when we work on our script, I always tell you, like, I need you to answer these questions, because if I start answering them, it's going to be two voices. Now, the first Matrix, there had to be a great screen editor, and then that kind of morphs the message of the movie, and that's why you see the second and the third one and the fourth one, where I think they got more reign. Go more their way, I guess. I don't really remember the second, the third, and the fourth one very much, but like you can kind of see that also with their other work, and you can tell that someone was there cutting scenes and changing stuff to make it more of a product.
Well, yes, that's the real effect of the Matrix. If we make a serious reading, the deviation, the standard deviation from the vision of the first one, which was probably less compromised versus the intention of whoever was behind the leitmotif of the script, it was compromised by the code of the Matrix in Matrix 2, 3, and 4. 4 more evidently than the other 3 for sure. I think the 4 is really the movie the Matrix will do about itself, including critique of capitalism and including social politics and like socially politically correct. I think like the 4th movie, it's totally a product of the Matrix, according to me.
Well, I would think a little bit when I think about a product, I'm thinking about the directors and the screenwriters.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they got more like feedback and like, you need to change this in the first one, and then in the second and the third and the fourth, it looks more like their other movies. So I don't know if they got more free reign, but this is just me like speculating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also speculating, but I would also agree with Grenier, because I feel like, people will read the 4th one and kind of like the Matrix 4 apologism, saying like, well, yeah, the movie's not good, but what could Lana do when she's stuck in the system? And I think that like, if the 4th movie proves anything, it's the fact that she could have done whatever she wanted. If she can like spit in the, I mean, of course, like, functionally it's not spitting in the face of Warner Brothers, but if she could go as far as to publicly state that I don't want to make this movie, I'm doing it reluctantly, then she could have really done anything. So this idea that, I mean, yes, ultimately she is still stuck in like, the Matrix that was just as existent in the rest of the 3, and that, it's a product of a corporation and stuff like that. But I think that in order to do something like that, she had to have a fair amount of creative freedom. So I agree.
So let me be the radical analyst here. So nothing sells better than Revolution on MTV. Like it's like buying Che Guevara T-shirts when in reality Revolution is not going to be televised.
I agree functionally, but I don't think that Warner Brothers executives, who are like the people that are depicted in the 4th one, like douchebags, they think
real douchebags. Like, we should do something with cats. Yeah,
But I mean, I agree with you functionally. Like, yes, it doesn't threaten the system at all.
At all.
Yeah.
This is control opposition. To be able to be self-critical is the true power of totalitarianism. The true power of totalitarianism is to say, you know what? A movie criticizing Amazon is going to be in Amazon. I'm that powerful, you fucking suckers. Yeah, I can even, I can do a movie throwing shit at myself, saying what a bad guy I am, and you're going to fucking pay to watch it. That's how good I am. This is true totalitarianism. Control opposition is the definition of where we are politically. But moving ahead, because we're reaching an hour, I don't want to abuse of your guys' times.
I was born to talk about the Matrix, so don't worry about me.
Yeah, it's insane, man. I could really go on for hours with this. Like, if we could go, like, I did a scene by scene analysis, and there's so much to talk about. It's insane. But I wanna propose to you guys this lo-fi analysis of the Matrix. Okay, let's take it seriously for a second. So, for example, to give you an example of the type of analysis I would like to do, a materialist analysis of the Matrix, a non-idealist analysis of it. Because talking about metaphysics, the existence of the subject, the division between mind and body, Cartesian dualism, like dipping our toes in metaphysics we have done it before. Like all the metaphysical analysis of the Matrix have been done. I want to do a materialistic analysis of the Matrix, okay? And let's take the Matrix not as a distinction between reality and fiction, but as a metaphor of reality, of currently existing reality. Simulation is the way we use ideology to explain the functioning of reality. But reality itself is pertinent. There is a factually existing reality, like beyond our subjective, imaginary, and symbolic understanding of material reality. To give you an example of what I mean by this, by really simplifying, and then I go into no less philosophical mumbo jumbo. But when Neo is first placed under arrest by Agent Smith, right? So he says, you know what? Fuck you. I want my phone call, right? And Agent Smith says, well, I can give you your phone call, but what good is a phone call if you cannot speak? No. And his mouth is trapped. Okay. So I don't take it as the simulation is taking you the freedom to speak. It's like, if you're poor, average Joe, employed in a big company, and the CIA gets to you, you can make your fucking phone call. Who are you going to speak to? What voice do you have? Like this is the type of analysis I want to make, like the practical, physical, material analysis of what we have, which is in the end, and also this is very much implied in Baudrillard and also Guy Debord, because those books, they start from Marxism. They start from a material reading of reality, from a relationship based on the means of production. So what is the true power of Neo? Like, because the way they see reality is through ideology. Ideology, in a way, help us articulate and isolate real events so that we can give meaning to them. This is ideology. Ideology makes us think that because there's a thunder, there is going to be rain. The connection between the sound of thunder and the probability of rain is explained by ideology. There's no certainty. Maybe the sound was made by something else, but ideology builds the certainty or the reason behind the connection between disconnected events or multifactorially connected events. Ideology is the way we structure reality. Ideology is the matrix. Is the way we explain reality. That is the true simulation that we're trapped in. And in that sense, that's why I think they are never able to escape it. Because even outside the matrix, they are still within ideology. They think about God and prophecies, and there's this notion of freedom, and there's free will, and they're never out. Like, materially speaking, they're always trapped in ideology itself.
Yeah, but that goes back to the point where it's very similar to what I was talking about. It's a script done like the Bible, and it gets to a point where you can't go any further, so you have to come back in towards itself, like towards what the planet is, towards the conflict of the robots with the humans. It gets to a point where then we have to repeat the story. There's no outer space, for example, and this is something that I've realized outside of the Matrix as a storyteller or a writer. Like, it gets to a point where every story is the same, and I cannot break out of the cycle of how a story is told and everything, because I don't even know what reality is. I have to adapt ideologies, philosophies from other people, or how I interpret their philosophies to put it into a play or a screenplay. And it's just like, the Matrix is the perfect example of that. You only get to a certain level till you have to press reset.
Yeah. We can never truly escape it.
Let me tell you, do you agree with this, Diego? Like, if the Matrix is ideology in your analysis, then would Neo be basically the thing that can show the cracks that point to the real? Like, that's what the gold world maybe is. It's not defined. It's just like the closest we can get to glimpsing the real.
Exactly. Why? And this is the original Lacanian analysis of the notion of the sublime and stuff like that. Because we have these three registers of reality. We have the imaginary register. So we get in touch with phenomenological experience, and we transform that phenomenological experience into an image. So we have an imaginary version of the world that is captured by our sensorial experience. Okay. Then from the imaginary, we transform those imaginary experiences into symbols that we can convey and communicate with others. So from imaginary, it goes into the symbolic order. So we do symbolic exchange. We talk about matrix, power, control, justice, right, wrong, God, the devil, agents. So it goes into the symbolic. But what triggers the imaginary register that eventually becomes the symbolic register? Something real. We had to be in touch with something real for reality to produce the imaginary register that then we will convey socially into the symbolic order. But what Neo is trying to show us, and this is where Baudrillard becomes relevant again, is that there is a real that originally triggered our imaginary version of the world. Where is this real? And today we are just trapped into symbolic, simulation, a simulation of a simulation of a simulation of a simulation, but there was never a real element. And in the materialist reading, according to me, is that yes, we can break our heads here talking about if we live in a reality, if simulation, if we're all dreaming, and then we're gonna wake up and be unable to tell the distinction between dream and reality. And to be honest with you, I think there's a lo-fi reading of the Matrix where we can say, yes, Neo as a worker, he was completely underpowered, completely submitted, and Agent Smith is the CIA. The Matrix is the logic of capital, and there's a very, very straightforward reading of this movie that can be done under that premise.
But wouldn't Neo then also be like an agent of the CIA? He was a plant that didn't know, like a sleeper agent.
He's like so many historical figures that they didn't know that they were working for the CIA. And I can tell you this, and this is gonna hurt, but a lot of feminist icons work for the CIA without knowing. And a lot of mainstream academia, they work for the CIA without knowing. They are control opposition without knowing it.
If we just looked at the first film, though, without the second film and the third film, who would Morpheus be? Marx?
I think Morpheus will be like your anarchist agitator that wants to, put together guys to do like Tyler Durden. He will like set stuff on fire and like rob banks and maybe destroy a couple of things, but he doesn't have a plan. He's not like Marx because he doesn't have like a view of history. He just wants to find the one. And then he trusts that the one is going to be able to tell us where we go next. It's more like Muhadim. It's more like, I trust the one is going to know the way.
So yeah, I was going to go so it's like kind of like the Taliban or something. And then the CIA, like,
it's very messianic. It's very teleological. Nobody has a plan. Like if you ask them, okay, great. We tear down the Matrix. Now what? We all live in the desert. There's no energy, no water, no food. And we have like these millions of people that just woke up. What the fuck are we going to do? Like, are we going to organize them and like give them this nasty oatmeal to all of them at the same time? Like, what the fuck are they proposing? There's no day after plan. There's just trust. There's just messianic trust.
Something that Grenier just said made me remember something, and that is that he mentioned the Taliban. It's a very small detail that I probably didn't pick up until like the 10th time I saw it. But when Neo is sleeping at the beginning, on his screen, there are newspaper articles about Morpheus, and he is at least dubbed by the newspapers as a terrorist.
In Arab.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the newspaper is in Arab. You're absolutely right. I had forgot about that before as well.
I didn't even notice that.
Exactly. Morpheus is a terrorist. That's why I made a comparison. He doesn't have a plan. He's not Marx. He's just an anarchist. He wants change, but he has nothing to propose.
Yeah, and he's being fed by the Oracle, which is also part of the system, and it's like
just like
we don't know that until the second
movie.
ISIS.
Yeah, just like ISIS.
Right. That's why I wanted to just cordon off the first movie, because when you bring in the second movie, then yeah, there's really no revolutionary potential in any of them.
Exactly. It's
but
just
like
control opposition
like
all the way now.
I don't even remember the second one. I'm just going off from what I saw in the first one. Like when you look at like but yeah, you're right, because maybe the Oracle could be working on its own like dreams and intents, right? Like Morpheus Millet.
Yeah,
there was something, in the first one, there was something kind of beautifully unexplained about the Oracle, in that, like, she really just seemed to be this like mystical source, and then, of course, continuing on with the series, they had to, oh, well, is she actually a program? If she's a program, then is she liable to the dictates of the system? Turns out, yes, in a very weird way. And I think the way that they handled it was like intelligent. Did it make for a good movie? Well, it's a different discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you. In the sense that it's crazy. You know how I see the Oracle now? Like in my Materialist reading, the Oracle is the director of human resources. Yeah, that's the Oracle. The Oracle is the director of human resources. It's like, no, you have to talk to your boss and renegotiate better working conditions, but you're still going to work for us. Yeah.
It's funny because I was seeing the Oracle as that girl on YouTube that's trying to sell me like, you can manifest anything if you just buy my book.
Yeah, we don't really want to change things. We just want you to know, like, there is no spoon, that there is no capital. It's like, of course there is. Like all social relationships are conditioned by class struggles and property. It's insane. It's unescapable. This is for me what is most frustrating. Like every time I rewatch these movies, like V for Vendetta, The Matrix, like all movies with a hint of revolutionary potential, of us coming to the conclusion that there is a system that is outside of us that conditions us. Because this is the metaphor of the matrix. The matrix is that there is a system of control, and there is a system of control. Why? Because we are not free. We are materially conditioned. We are materially conditioned everywhere. Because I don't own a house, I have to rent it, so I have to sell my labor. So I have to eat and struggle. I have to struggle for recognition from the others, and I have to find love and find dignity and meaning in life. I'm stuck into this system that is hardwiring my desire towards a specific direction. Yes, we are in a matrix for sure. Capital is the code, and it's interesting because that the notion of the code. It's and I have it right now because I was reading it the last week. The notion of the code. It was the original name that Marx gave to the commodity of commodities. Because in Capital Volume 1, you have the value of exchange, right? So you have 100 kilos of iron are worth 50 kilos of soy. So, but then if
I tried to read Capital Volume 1. It's so dry. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No. Yeah, I agree. I have read it like 3 times, and I understand it. It's true what you're saying. So when you talk about the value of exchange, right? So you have 100 kilos of iron is the same as 50 kilos of soy because of social necessary labor time necessary to create those, right? But then if you want to buy, I don't know, leather, then leather is equal to 75 kilos of aluminum or 27.8 kilos of soy. And it becomes messy to remember all the equivalences. So we take gold as the commodity of commodities. So everything goes to the value of gold. And then, it's iron to gold and orange to gold, soy to gold, leather to gold. And then gold becomes the commodity of commodities. That code, the equivalence between all the symbolic positions within the web of value is what creates social relationships. Then you choose what you're going to spend your time on and what do you need and what do you want to build. That was the original notion of Marx for code. Can you imagine? That code, that implied code, rules society behavior. So
this is something that I've kind of been telling my audience on my channel lately, and that is that, most movies, there's a layer of mystification. Even ones that are trying to reveal a higher truth are, usually just serving you another layer of manufactured meaning. And what I say is, I take a lot of inspiration from some of the more contemporary meta-modern thinkers. And the thing is, it's okay. Let's let ourselves be benevolently fooled. Let's accept the fact that we just, got lied to our face and it was a beautiful experience. And let's just enjoy it and then sober up later and come back to reality. But it's about, weighing those two things. And I think actually that's one of the big mistakes of the fourth film. Some people, I think, do analyze the fourth film as a meta-modern text. I don't, because, for a couple reasons. This kind of gets us in another direction. Meta-modernism is usually about wavering between an ironic and a sincere disposition, whereas in this movie it's the first half is ironic, second one is sincere, and it just kind of doesn't work that way. But yeah, ultimately I agree with you, but that's actually given me a lot of solace in my relationship with movies. If because sometimes I'm I love this movie. God, am I just being confounded by ideology? Maybe, but that's okay. I kind of let myself be benevolently fooled.
Yeah. Like Gurdner was saying, you're being entertained.
Yeah. Emotions. It's all about the emotions. I'm going to call this video of how Diego made me a communist with the Matrix.
Part 3, Gurdner. Yeah. Part 3 out of 10. You will become one, comrade. There's no way out. There's only so much reading you can do about reality before becoming a communist.
I was thinking about this, the individual and how
the collective.
The collective is more important. I'm like, oh my God. Right now, I'm thinking about the collective. What is wrong with me?
You see, man, you're becoming a comrade. It's inevitable. There's no such thing as right-wing intellectuals. If you're truly an intellectual, you become left-wing. It's almost impossible. Sartre was the one to explain this, but it's incredible. I was listening lately to a friend of mine that is a philosopher here in Mexico, American guy that moved to Mexico to become a philosophy professor, and he's giving the history of right-wing thinkers. So shallow. It's insane. You have to actually almost
wait. Is this Matt McManus?
No, not Matt. I know Matt very well, and I'm very good friends with Matt. No, not Matt. It's another guy that is called I forgot his name. He has this program called La Fonda Filosofica.
Okay.
I'm such a douche because I love this guy, but he has
Yeah.
this series about right-wing ideology, and I mean I've read many of these right-wing ideologues, and it's crazy how shallow you have to be to stay in the right. And I'm not talking about the progressive left, because progressive left is still liberal. Like the true antagonism is between communism and capitalism. The rest is political spectrum within liberalism, which is still right-wing. And this is what is insane for me. And I think
You don't have even a little bit of love for Dostoevsky?
Yes, for sure. But do you think he's better than Freud or Lacan?
Well, no, but I mean, again, like I still consider him an intellectual. That's what I'm
for sure.
challenging.
For
You
sure.
know, and he's a reactionary.
Yeah, and he's a
100%.
reactionary. For sure.
Yeah.
But he's not up there with Freud and Lacan. Like
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. But yeah. But by the way, the only reason I thought you were talking about McManus is because I read his book, The Political Right and Equality, which was very good. And like he goes through all of the right-wing intellectuals.
No, he's
so
super
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I really like Matt.
Yeah.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I haven't. I'm looking for. I might reach out to him. I'm just looking
Let
for the
me
right
know.
topic. Yeah,
Let me know
yeah. I
if you want
remember
to.
you. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, so thank you so much. I don't know if you have any final regards or a final quote from the movie, whatever you want, or if any final comments.
I would just like to say, Grenier, watch the rest of the movies, man. I mean, don't expect an experience as good as the first one, but I think you're going to find something at least interesting about all of them.
No. I've watched them a long time ago, but I have
It's
to
time
say
for a refresh. Yeah,
I'll go and watch them.
Yeah,
And
Bruner, do you wanna pitch Jared about the idea we're writing about, or that's a bad thing to do?
I mean, it's live on the internet, but sure.
You put him on the spot.
Who cares? If we don't make it, it's nothing.
No, we're gonna make it. I've never written anything that I haven't made.
Really?
So I'm
I
not
like
gonna
it.
break this.
Damn,
I'm
that's
not
a
gonna
warrior
break
right
this.
there.
Sorry?
I'm not gonna break.
I said that's a warrior right there,
Yeah,
man.
he is, man.
Yeah.
He's like my perfect crime partner to do this type of crazy shit. Like it's insane. Like once I met him and a couple of friends from Panama, like I acted in a TV series, I acted in a movie, and I was executive producer of his movie. Like in a time frame of like 6 months. It's insane. Like these guys, they really make it. It's crazy.
Fast. Okay, so basically, I still need to have that conversation I told you to like figure out how a lot of the structure of the world works, but it's a homage to Miami Vice. But instead of just being like a normal detective story, they're actually robots stuck in this loop that the 80s repeats itself. So they don't even know they're robots. The audience kind of finds out they're robots because when we see dead bodies, it's not 100% human. And then they start discovering like, okay, we're robots. And then I'm writing it right now that it's like the last 5 or 10 days of December. So it's like a countdown to the reset. And then they're trying to like prevent the reset to go to the future.
They really want to get into the 90s, man.
That's so cool. That's very, very fresh. I'm
you
hooked.
know,
the
idea behind it, Jared, is that there are no longer any humans left. It's only objects.
But then they think they have consciousness and stuff. And then like one of the detectives is more worried about paying the rent than about the stuff resetting. And then the other guy's like, what? Like, dude, like the world is gonna. And then I add like a lot of elements, like from actual Miami Vice episodes. I use their techniques of like how they close a scene. They have a computer called Lorraine, but I don't want to really go into all these details because I really want to pin it down. We have to have that talk actually this week.
Yeah, man, we need to push it forward. And I have been like, it's not a lie. Eh? I'm not gonna lie about this. I came up with this idea because I got fucking fixated with an 80s soundtrack in Spotify that had a recompilation of all the songs from Miami Vice. And I was listening to them nonstop. And I was like, I need to bring this style back no matter what. And I had this notion that because of The Matrix and other movies, that I think if we ever create artificial consciousness or artificial intelligence, the real problem is going to trigger is that in retrospective, we're going to sadly discover that there's nothing special about human consciousness. And this is what I want to be the spirit of this movie. I want people to.
ChatGPT showed me that yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think we're kind of already there. Like the thing I really don't like about people who say like, "Oh, ChatGPT is just like a plagiarism machine," and I'm just like, "Well, what do you think that every thought that comes to your head is spontaneous inspiration?"
Exactly.
You know,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. Do you think you're original? Do you think these
Yeah.
words are new? Do you came up with these words? Of course you didn't.
Yeah.
They're all
Right.
they're all copies of copies.
What did the original artist paint in caves, stars, buffaloes. They didn't like, you get what I mean? Like a dragon is probably like some kind of animal, and then
They
just like,
misinterpreted the world. Exactly.
yeah,
Creative
or they
freedom most of the
exaggerate
time
it.
is a mistake.
We exaggerate. So that's what a lot of, we grab real life and then we just stretch it like a Tarantino film, you know? Like that's what we do.
Yeah,
We just
something
make
like
it
that.
bigger.
Yeah. So what do you think, Jared? Do we have something?
I do think so. I mean, I want to hear more. So I mean, you got me hooked. The pitch is already very good. I think you've got a really like a knack for it. You've probably practiced a lot
A what?
at pitching
No?
ideas.
We have not pitched this. This is not even
No,
like
no, not this one, but just in general. You've probably
Well,
pitched
yeah.
things.
Well, I'm married, so yes, I had to be good at pitching myself.
Yeah. Actually, that makes sense because everyone tells me I'm good at pitching, but it's like
You see?
convincing my wife is probably the
Yeah.
hardest thing. I want to
It's
say
a
hi to my
seduction.
wife.
Yeah,
'Cause I
we're
never
all
say hi to
married, successful married men, so we're at least somehow good at pitching ourselves to be loved and deserving of love. So that's already good enough. Guys, thank you so much. I had
Alright.
such a good time. I really appreciate
Yeah.
both of you. Your opinions are so based and so refreshing and so cool to listen to. If you don't mind, we can do this again soon with other movies or whatever you
Let's
guys are up
go.
to. I would love to.
Would love it.
Let's
Thank you
go.
guys so
Let's
much.
do it.
Great
Guys,
to meet you, Grenier.
So everybody seeing this or watching this video, please go ahead, follow my friend Jared, and also check out my friend Gurner. They're also super smart people that know a lot about movies and other topics that are you sure going to find interesting. They make content in English and in Spanish. I'm going to leave their links and stuff so you can follow them below. And nothing, leave us your comment if you like it, if you didn't like it. If you haven't seen The Matrix, go watch the fucking Matrix. It takes a while and a half, and it's so worth it. It's so fun. Watch the Animatrix. Take a dump at number 2 and number 3 as well. If you want to leave number 4 out, I won't judge you. It's okay. But at least the first 3 and Animatrix are totally worth it. Guys, thank you so much. Have a good Tuesday.
Thank you.
Peace.
And we are